Welcome to Brain Snacks, bite-sized learning moments from We Are Human Leaders. In today's Brain Snack, we share advice for managers struggling to manage team productivity and not burn themselves out. This includes practical tips to help you manage up successfully. This is part of our 4-part Brain Snack series where we answer your questions. For more resources like this, check out the We Are Human Leaders podcast at the link in our show notes. For now, enjoy. So this was a question we received. I believe in looking after my people, but right now budgets are really tight and workloads are really heavy, and leadership is really pushing me to drive more output. How do I actually protect my own mental health and still deliver results without burning out my team and myself? That's a tough one.
It really is. And I think I get a little bit angry when I hear that, middle management are being subject to this kind of messaging from senior leaders who are apparently more interested in this Q sort of bottom line than in retaining people and having, really optimal engagement and productivity from people. It's that really short-term mentality. And I think just misunderstanding of what actually drives productivity, and a healthy bottom line that actually does their organization a massive disservice. So to that person, I would say, look what you can do with that budget. Make sure that to the extent that you can, you're staying in conversation with your people, staying connected with your people, looking at ways you can offer recognition for what people are doing that is really helping them to feel seen, heard, and valued. Because I think that is something that is so accessible to all of us, sort of in without thinking about sort of which organization you're in or what, how much money you have to play with, but really building that sort of sense of you matter and what you're doing here is really important to what we're producing as a team. So leaning into those optionalities, and I think, like as you alluded to, like just really role modeling that sort of healthy balance between work and life outside of work. I think also not buying into the false urgency culture. And I can imagine, particularly if you've got senior leadership that's trying to just drive more output, that will again feel a bit countercultural. But very few of us are genuinely in situations where someone will die if we don't send an email that day. I think really sort of showing up in that way as a leader and sort of fighting back against that false urgency is another really important way that we can dial down the levels of chronic stress that people are experiencing.
Yeah, I really appreciate that answer, Sel. And I just want to sort of make the comment that if you are a middle manager or leader in this position, we see you, we hear you, we feel you, we are you. I've been in this position, whether it be in local government or in big brands around the world as well. And it is so difficult to both manage up and kind of create that insulation around your team where you feel like you can protect them from those expectations. And I know so many middle managers feel the personal plight of taking on what they feel is being pushed down upon them so that it doesn't impact their team. And I just want to acknowledge you if you are one of those leaders. Thank you. We know how hard that is, and we know how burdensome that feels when you are trying to do the best by your people and you feel like there's so much external pressure on you. It is so tough to manage. And it also does remind me of a conversation we had recently with Professor Melody Wilding around managing up. And it was a conversation that taught me so much around this idea of putting boundaries in place and strategically prioritizing with leadership above you as well. And I've had these challenges myself in managing teams where you feel like you're being given constrained resources, whether it be less time, less money, less people on the team, and you need to get more done from that. And then you'll get handed, new KPIs for the new quarter, and there's somehow new things that have been added to that list, and you think, how on earth am I going to get this done? I think one of the points she made that I found really helpful was having an open conversation with the leaders above you to help them understand how your resources are currently spread and what they might like to prioritize or deprioritize based on your insight. I think so often as middle managers, we almost feel attacked by some of those KPIs or metrics or expectations being handed down to us from leaders in different positions above us. And we feel like it's our job to carry it out without actually trying to shed some transparency on that. And now I'm also noting here that sometimes what we have to say, those above us don't want to hear it. There's that expectation, and they just want to see it carried out and done. So it's not always going to feel easy, but helping those above you to understand, here's what we're working with. What are in this list the biggest priorities so that I can, use my resources to actually meet those needs as well. And I think pushing back a little bit and having those conversations, managing up a little bit like that actually helps those folks who are handing the KPIs and the budgets to you, get a little bit of intel from what it's like on the inside of your position and what it looks like to be on your team, because they don't see the day-to-day. They don't see the pushback you might be getting from your team or the challenges your team faces. So it is your job to advocate for that. It is your job to speak up and let people know where the team's at, where the resource constraints are, and what you're doing and what you're actually achieving as well. Don't be afraid to advocate on behalf of your team and say, well, this is what we've done so far with the resources allocated to us, and this has been a huge success because of X, Y, and Z. But at the same time, do be transparent around having the conversation around prioritization, because I do think a lot of us just take those instructions and feel like it's our job to administer them. But there is, I think, opportunity sometimes there to transparently and, respectfully, kindly, from the perspective of wanting to see the best for both your team and the organization. It's not about a me versus them. Those leading you are also in a tough position, most likely as well. So I think it's giving everyone the human kindness to say, hey, if we have a bit of an open conversation around this, I'm sure we can prioritize what the needle movers are for our team and for the broader organization, and really align efforts in that way.
I think what you've just described, like, there's also a really important component of what it means to be a human leader that is, a people-centered leader, human first, leader second, and that is really aligned with your values. Because I think when you're not having those kind of conversations and being able to, sort of give that perspective, we start to lose sight of what, really authentically drives us as leaders. And I think that's when we can start to really see burnout take seed, when we really start to withdraw from our roles because we feel like it just doesn't matter anymore. So I think really staying, keeping those fires burning as well, of authenticity and what matters for me, who I want to be and how I want to show up. And it's interesting, I think we do see, actually surprisingly often, that senior leaders are willing to have a chat, maybe take an extra 5 or 10 minutes to explore an idea or to explain why they can't push that through because of the constraints that they're facing. So I think it is, every time we can sort of create that space for a more human interaction and a deeper understanding, that we can also shift that needle gently as it may be towards a more human-centered organization. And that's a really powerful outcome in itself.
We hope you enjoyed this brain snack from We Are Human Leaders with Alexis and Sally. To learn more about this topic, check out the full conversation at the link in our show notes. And to learn more about human leaders, find us at www.wearehumanleaders.com.